Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're kicking off with a really powerful question. It was first asked way back in 1925 by a young Mao Zedong, actually during a discussion at Fudan University in Shanghai.
Right.
He asked, who will be the master of this boundless land? And, you know, it's kind of amazing how relevant that question still feels today, with everything changing so fast globally.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really resonates. And for this deep dive, we've actually got some really interesting material.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, excerpts from a YouTube video. Features Professor Zhang Weiwei, Professor Wu Xinwen, and importantly, students from Fudan University. Gives you a good mix of perspectives.
Sounds great. So our goal, our sort of mission for you listening today is to really try and get under the skin of why Mao Zedong's ideas, his way of thinking, still connect with China's generation now.
Especially navigating this, complex world.
Exactly. We'll be looking at sort of three main things that are all linked up. China's unique path, the role of Marxist thought, and critically, the part young people play in, well, whatever comes next.
And it's worth remembering, too, Fudan University itself has this history woven in.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, the name. Mao Zedong actually inscribed it. And beyond that, Fudan was, deeply involved in the early days of Marxism spreading in China.
How so?
Well, Chen Lingdao, who later became the university's president, he did the first full Chinese translation of the Communist Manifesto. That was back in 1920.
Wow, 1920.
Yeah, and that specific translation, it had a huge impact on both Mao and later Deng Xiaoping, so the connection is really there.
That really sets the stage. And this discussion we're drawing from, it happened during the centenary celebrations for the Communist Party of China, right?
That's right. So another layer of historical context.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where do we start? Maybe with the real basics of Mao's thinking. What were the cornerstones?
Yeah, good place to start. I think two things really stand out. First, seeking truth from facts. Real practical. And second, always taking the people's stance, putting the people first. And what's interesting is these ideas, they sound simple maybe, but they're still incredibly relevant for, pretty much anything you try to do today. Doesn't matter the field.
And you can kind of see how his own early life fed into that, can't you?
Definitely.
Like his worry about the state of the nation and actually getting out there, doing social investigations, seeing things firsthand.
Right. It wasn't just theory for him.
No, exactly. It connects to that powerful statement he made. This world is our world. This nation is our nation. This society is our society. If we don't speak, who will? If we don't act, who will? It's like a call to action, isn't it? Take ownership.
It really is a profound sense of responsibility.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that drive, it was, really amplified when he embraced Marxism.
Ah, okay.
He mentioned 3 books himself that really solidified his Marxist beliefs. And like we said, Chen Lingdao's translation of the manifesto was one of them. It gave him a framework,
A way to understand the bigger picture.
Exactly. A way to understand the forces shaping history.
And the October Revolution in Russia must have been huge then.
Oh, absolutely massive. Yeah. It was like proof of concept for Chinese intellectuals.
How so?
It showed them that ordinary working people, the majority, they can actually rise up, take political power. It wasn't just a theoretical idea anymore.
It made it real.
Exactly. It made it real. And it lined up perfectly with Marx's idea of a proletarian movement, for the majority, by the majority.
Right.
And you see this reflected in Mao's writing. By 1925, in the Political Weekly, he's clearly stating his goals: national liberation, rule by the people, and economic well-being for everyone. The October Revolution gave a kind of blueprint, or at least hope, that it was possible through Marxism-Leninism.
Okay, so he's got these core ideas, influenced by Marx, influenced by Russia, but then his thinking starts to take a distinctly Chinese path, especially regarding the peasants. That was a big deal, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely critical.
Yeah.
This is where his views started to diverge a bit from some others in the early party.
Because the standard Marxist view focused more on city workers.
Right. The industrial proletariat. That was the classical model. But Mao, and this is key, based on his own field work, going out into the countryside in 25-26.
Actually talking to people?
Yes. He became totally convinced that the peasant issue was the absolute heart of the Chinese Revolution. You couldn't succeed without them.
So he was really pushing against the grain there.
He was. He was actively telling party members, go to the countryside, understand their suffering, their needs.
Don't just stay in the cities theorizing.
Exactly. And his strategy was organize the peasants, mobilize them against the local tyrants, the landlords, and also for the bigger national fight against imperialism and the warlords. He fundamentally saw it as a peasant revolution.
And that wasn't the popular view at the time.
Not at all. Not
Yeah.
really within the CCP, and certainly not with the Comintern, the International Communist Organization. They had a different script.
But history kind of proved him right, didn't it?
It did. Even Deng Xiaoping, looking back years later, was very clear about Mao's crucial role in finding the right path for the revolution. It's a powerful endorsement.
Yeah, it really is. And there are specific examples of these judgments he made, aren't there? Like rejecting the Soviet model for China's revolution.
Yes, that's a key one. The prevailing Soviet view was basically China's feudal, so it needs a bourgeois revolution first, led by the Kuomintang.
With the communists sort of playing second fiddle?
Exactly, an auxiliary role. But Mao looked at China and saw something different.
What did he see?
He saw feudal elements, sure, but also significant capitalist features. Crucially, a comprador class, a Chinese elite tied to foreign imperial interests. So his strategy wasn't about supporting the bourgeoisie, it was about organizing the peasants against the landlord class, which was often linked to those foreign powers. A totally different approach than Moscow's.
Makes sense. And then there's that famous line about political power.
It grows out of the barrel of a gun.
Yes. That came after the failure of the Great Revolution in the late 1920s, a real setback.
And Mao's conclusion was stark. Armed struggle was essential, and not just fighting, but establishing rural revolutionary bases, building power in the countryside.
Which must have seemed pretty radical at the time.
Very unorthodox. But again, it proved to be the strategy that worked for China.
And then the whole situation shifts again with the threat from Japan.
Right, the 1930s. After the Zuni Conference in 1935, which solidified his leadership, Mao puts forward this idea of a broad, united front.
At the Weiobao Conference.
That's the one. And this wasn't just workers and peasants anymore. He argued they needed to bring in the petty bourgeoisie, even the national bourgeoisie, anyone patriotic to fight Japan.
So a much wider coalition.
Much wider. It was a shift from thinking about just a worker-peasant republic to a broader people's republic, adapting to the urgent threat.
He really seemed to have a knack for seeing the bigger picture and adjusting, and he expressed it so powerfully, too.
He really did. His words from that time just radiate this conviction, this belief that the Chinese nation could defeat Japan relying on its own strength.
Even when they were weak.
Exactly. There's that story about the Kuomintang general Yi Guang being just stunned by Mao's confidence, even though the communists were in a tough spot militarily. That united front strategy was absolutely vital for victory against Japan, and then ultimately for founding the PRC in 1949.
So beyond the strategy and politics, he also delved into philosophy itself, didn't he? With On Practice.
Yes, a really significant contribution to Marxist philosophy. What's key about On Practice is Mao's emphasis that philosophy isn't just about interpreting the world.
It's about changing it.
Exactly. Traditional philosophy often gets stuck on ontology, what is, or deontology, what should be. Mao really zeroed in on epistemology, how we know things, but specifically through practice.
Like a cycle.
Precisely. It's a continuous loop.
Yeah.
You act, you practice something,
Yeah.
you learn from that, gain knowledge. Then you go back and practice again, hopefully better, with deeper understanding. Practice, knowledge, practice again.
Very hands-on, not just sitting in an armchair thinking.
Definitely not. And this idea, seeking truth from facts, learning through doing, adapting based on experience, it became a bedrock principle. Not just for the revolution, but you could argue it still shapes China's approach to things like the market economy, globalization.
Trying things out, seeing what works.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
A pragmatic approach, which you could argue helped them avoid some major pitfalls, politically and economically, that others have faced.
But it's crucial to remember he wasn't, perfect from the start, right? He learned through practice, too.
Oh, absolutely. Professor Zhang makes that point clearly. Mao himself evolved. His initial focus, maybe more traditionally Marxist, was on urban workers.
Before the peasants.
Right. It was only after he went out, did the field work, saw the reality in the countryside, that he fully grasped how central the peasantry was. It actually proves his own point about learning from practice, doesn't it?
It does. It really underscores that principle. Now, another huge achievement often cited is organizing the people, getting such a vast, historically fragmented country unified.
That's fundamental. You can't overstate its importance. Creating those peasant associations, implementing land reform, it mobilized millions, especially at the grassroots. It tackled that historical problem of China being, like loose sand, as Sun Yat-sen said.
Laying the groundwork for a modern nation state.
Exactly. Building that foundation from the bottom up.
And some argue that this organizational capacity is still visible today, like in the response to COVID-19.
That's a key argument in the sources, yes. That China, in a way, is redefining modernization.
How so?
Well, the argument goes that their ability to contain the pandemic relatively effectively, especially compared to some Western nations, comes directly from that deep-rooted grassroots organization.
Like a people's war against the virus.
That's the phrase used. Efficient mobilization, clear directives reaching down to the local level, that kind of coordinated society-wide effort.
Whereas other places maybe lacked that structure, that unity.
That's the contrast being drawn. Societies perhaps lacking those strong local connections or that unified national approach faced bigger hurdles. And Professor Zhang connects this, maybe controversially, to India's development challenges.
What is the connection?
He suggests that maybe India struggles with achieving that kind of deep, transformative modernization could partly stem from not having had those really fundamental social reforms like widespread land reform, women's liberation, and maybe lacking that same kind of unifying national force.
He even mentions lacking a figure like Mao.
He does make that comparison, suggesting India perhaps missed having its own Mao Zedong to drive that kind of revolutionary social change.
Yeah.
It's a provocative thought.
It is. Let's loop back then to that original question. Who will be the master of this boundless land?
Yeah, that 1925 poem Mao wrote, Leaving Hunan, it just captures that youthful energy, the questioning, but also his answer.
Which was?
That China had to be independent, liberated. Its destiny had to be in the hands of its own people, full stop.
A declaration of self-determination.
Absolutely. And the argument follows that the CCP, by mobilizing the people, enabled them to become those masters of their own destiny, which led to the huge changes China has seen.
Okay, so that brings us to the present. It's fascinating to hear how the Fudan students connect with all this today, like that pharmacy student asking about Marxism for non-majors.
Yeah, that's a great practical question. How do you apply this stuff if you're studying, say, pharmacy?
Right. Seems worlds apart.
Professor Zhang's advice was really helpful, I thought. Focus on the core approach of Marxism, its standpoints, its viewpoints, its methods, how it analyzes things.
And apply that lens to your own field.
Exactly. Because philosophical thinking, that way of analyzing, isn't confined to one subject. He even mentioned how Edgar Snow noticed Mao could explain Marxist ideas without even using Marx's name.
Interesting.
The real takeaway was, learn philosophy through practice. Apply it to the real world, to your own situation.
Then there was the question about involution, that feeling of being stuck in intense, maybe pointless competition. That really hits home for a lot of young people.
Oh, definitely. Dijon. It's a huge topic. Professor Zhang's take was interesting. He suggested reframing it. Question the terms of the competition itself. Look for other paths, wider perspectives. Don't just accept the pressure. He also pointed out, quite rightly, that the internet can blow these anxieties way out of proportion.
Makes everything seem worse.
It can. His point was, yes, competition is real, but opportunities are still out there. And maybe a move that looks like stepping down, like his example of philosophy PhD teaching high school, could actually be really valuable and fulfilling. Take a longer view.
Right, not just the immediate status. What about the question from the PhD student? Why did early CCP leaders, often from well-off families, choose revolution?
Yeah, that's a classic question. Professor Zhang's answer really focused on the sheer darkness and injustice of the time.
It was just that bad.
Apparently, yes. The inequality, the suffering, it created this incredibly powerful desire for radical change, no matter your background. He quoted Zhou Enlai talking about the shocking poverty in the countryside, how ready people were for revolution.
And contrasting that with Chiang Kai-shek not really getting it.
Exactly. And then he connects it to today. The context is totally different, of course, but the idea is that individuals still have a responsibility and an opportunity to contribute to changing China and the world. That whole idea. Everyone is responsible for the fate of the world.
Finding purpose through contribution.
Yeah. Find meaning through effort. And he urged them. Speak plainly. Connect these ideas to real life.
Okay, and the liberal arts question. That People's Bank paper suggesting too many liberal arts students could be a problem, linking it to the middle-income trap in Southeast Asia.
Right, that sparked some debate. Professor Zhang pushed back a bit. First, he said, Southeast Asia is really diverse. You can't just lump them all together.
Fair point.
And maybe some countries focus on liberal arts because it's, well, cheaper to provide that education. His main point was, don't make sweeping generalizations. Look at the quality and the orientation of the education.
So it's not liberal arts itself that's the problem.
Not necessarily. He argued that blindly following Western theories is a problem. But liberal arts students who are grounded in China's own reality, they're actually vital.
Why vital?
To help deconstruct those dominant Western narratives, to build China's own way of explaining itself to the world. Critical thinking, but rooted in local context.
Makes sense. Then the student linking the CCP's success to Fukuyama's end of history idea failing. That's an interesting comparison.
Yeah, Professor Zhang liked that observation. He mused that maybe China's success with the pandemic is another sign that history hasn't ended in the way Fukuyama predicted.
A new turning point, perhaps.
Possibly. He used the analogy of the Communist Manifesto, the specter of communism. He suggested maybe a China model is now haunting or influencing the world in a similar way, generating debate and opposition.
And mentioned U.S. strategic errors.
Briefly, yeah. But his conclusion was cautious. It's hard to call historical endpoints when you're in the middle of them. The main thing is to focus on the work at hand.
Right. Keep doing what you're doing. Finally, those questions from the microelectronics student were very current, applying Marxism to the chip blockade and how to spread China's ideas globally.
Very timely. On the chip blockade, his approach was classic Marxist analysis. Look for the contradictions.
Like how the blockade hurts the U.S. too.
Exactly. It creates its own problems for those imposing it. He expressed real confidence that China could overcome it through self-reliance, innovation, pointed to aerospace as an example of what they can achieve.
And he made that joke about Trump.
Yeah, thanking Trump for inadvertently boosting China's drive for self-sufficiency, a bit tongue-in-cheek.
And on spreading Chinese thought globally.
His stance was clear. Don't try to impose the model. Instead, just show the reality. Use the internet, unfiltered content. Let people see daily life in China. Let the reality of socialism with Chinese characteristics speak for itself.
Be confident and be open.
Exactly. Confidence and open discussion.
So wrapping this all up, it really feels like we've come full circle. Back to Mao's question, his emphasis on, seeking truth from facts, focusing on the people.
Yeah, and that constant theme of learning through practice, through actually doing things. That seems central to the whole story, from the revolution to today.
And it highlights how China's path has constantly evolved, adapting to new challenges.
And as Professor Zhang said to the students, each generation really does have its own set of challenges, doesn't it? Its own mission to figure out.
Yeah. There's definitely a sense, listening to this, of anticipation, waiting to see how this current generation writes its own chapter.
It'll certainly be interesting to watch.
This is China, according to Zhang Weiwei.